Okay, so we have this oven here. This is a Home Depot installation. Now, the first thing that happened was they didn't use the template that came with the oven. These things come with a paper template so you know where to drill the holes. He decided that he was going to drill his own holes in his own places because he knows better. So, what happened? Well, what happened was he started guessing. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's here. Maybe it's over here. No, maybe it's over here. Oh, let's just go over here a little bit more. Yeah. The original oven had three nice, clean, what I call clean holes. There's one here, and we had one over here, and there was one over here. You see how his are all chopped? And I mean, look at that. Look at the size of that hole. We put a big fender washer on there. I don't know how many other holes are underneath that washer. Then he puts this hole here. See? Here's the plug for that hole that he drilled for the cord. This is all basically hollow under here. If I get my finger in there and show you. There's like a whole gap. So the power cord could easily go through the hole that was already there. Why is he drilling that hole? I'll put some light on the subject. You can see what I'm talking about. Why is he drilling that hole? He's got that hole. That's already there. And the power cord doesn't even go through the hole. Look at that. It just a worthless chunk of the cabinet taken out. That's like a 3-inch bore hole saw that he used for it serves no purpose now other than just a wasted chunk taken out of the cabinet. In fact, it would have been really clean to just run the power cord through that hole, the hole that's already there. That would have been totally clean, and the cord would have been routed through the hole. And here's what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, look at all the, look at this. Okay, so now we got a Swiss cheese cabinet. Okay. Oh, but hold on, this gets even better. Since he decided not to use the template, this screw here, if you can see, is not even in straight. It's on an angle. Can you see that? Why is it on an angle? Well, I was watching him. He was trying to find the hole with the screw, and oh, he was able to just get it to catch, but he couldn't get it to screw in. So he puts his power driver on the highest torque level, and he just drove that in with all his might. Okay, so that's on an angle. It's probably cross-threaded, and you can't move that thing. I had both hands on a screwdriver trying to move that. I was afraid I'm going to break the head off of that thing. So I'm having Home Depot come out again to look at this. Now, that's not all. Because this hole that he was after, the target, was over this way, and he wasn't quite able to catch it, what they did do was try to shove the oven over as far as they could this way to try to catch that hole. And in doing so, we ended up with this gap on this side of the oven, if you can see it right there. And on this side of the oven, perfectly tight. Try to do this with the light. It's kind of hard. And you see that little gap? See the skew there? That's because the oven is tilted from left to right. That's because he has the power cord squashed in between the oven and the cabinet on the right side. We'll get to that in a moment. But that's the right side, and that's the left side. And on the right side, we got this big gap. So he shoved the oven as far as he could this way. Consequently, if we look back here behind the oven, we see part of that wall, where the paint and even the bracket. There's the bracket showing on one side of the oven. If you get what I'm saying. Trying to move back and hold the light here so you can see. So that means we won't even be able to use the holes that he made, because the whole oven has to be shifted over a bit. So we're going to have to now drill even more new holes. And that's not all. If you open the oven door, because you maybe want to let this oven cool off, and you just crack it an inch and let go of it, it's slanted. It's slanted downward towards the front. And you can see that if you look here. Try to get this light again on here. Hang on. There's a gap here. It's not flush, tight. Why is that? Well, you'll never see this on camera. I can't quite get it. But if you look inside that gap, maybe you can see it. Down in there, see there's a little gray round? That's the power cord. He's got the power cord sandwiched between the oven and the cabinet right up here towards the front. And so what he did was, with his power torque screwdriver, this one is really torqued high too, the one that's not on a slant, but it's really torqued. And you can see, look at the top of the oven. Can you see how it's bent? Look how the oven bends up because he power torqued that thing to get that screw. But what he's doing is he's squashing that power cord, which is wedged in there. And actually, I had Home Depot, there it is, you can see it. I had Home Depot send an inspector out here, and he's the one who showed me that. He said, look, the power cord. He agreed. He said, oh boy, this installation is really bad. The power cord, he's the one who showed me that the power cord, and that's why this whole thing isn't straight. So that's the job you get. Now probably that screw up there that goes through my Swiss cheese cabinet now, that's on an angle, is torqued so high you can't move it. It's probably cross-threaded, which means that the oven is probably cross-threaded. Now, I told Home Depot that we had a problem with this installation, and what did they do? They sent the same Three Stooges back. The same Three Stooges came back and looked at it again and said, there's nothing wrong with that. He even tried to tell me that the oven's level. I showed him this. He said, no, the oven's level. Yeah, it's your house that's wrong. Well, that argument doesn't hold water. Here's a level, and we can see that the oven is way off. I don't know if you can see that bubble in there, but if I lift this up, we can see that we're far from level. And he was saying something about the cabinet. Well, here's the cabinet. I don't know if you can see that, but we're dead center. Cabinet's level as a pool of water, and the oven is not. And look at the size of that hole. Are you sure it's big enough? It's like you could put 4 power cords I'm talking about the head of the cord, the part that has the actual plug on the end. You fit 4 of them through that hole. I mean, there's the original hole, nice and neat and clean, you see. I mean, that's not all. You see, over here, I don't know if you can see it, but the vent is not centered over the exhaust port on the oven. See what I'm talking about? Watch this. Now, when they came back, and I showed him this, he put this, what's called flex tape. It's not foil tape that he used. Flex tape is a little different. Foil tape is like a metal tape that is, well, here, we got some here, that you put over it. It actually can be removed. What he wanted to put on here was a flex tape, which is god-awful stuff. It's really sticky. It never comes off clean. It shreds, it sticks, it's got super adhesive that won't let go. When you try to get it off, it's all gummy. Okay, so I really don't know the proper name for this. I called it flex tape. But see, it's this real flimsy stuff. It's not the same as foil tape, which costs a lot more. This is like an aluminum sheet that's got an adhesive backing. The stuff here that he was using is horrible stuff. When you try to take it off, after you put it on somewhere, it shreds, it sticks, you get little bits and pieces, and it's impossible to get off, leaves residue. It's like the cheapest, the absolute cheapest way that you can go about trying to do what he was doing on that duct. It's like the absolute cheapest possible way that it could be done, and it's not a good way. And he's not fixing the problem anyway. I stopped him in midstream and said, no, you're not going to put that tape on there. What he's doing is not guiding the exhaust into the duct. By taping that over, there's the fan down there. All you're doing is now blowing everything into this cavity under here. Under here. You're just diverting it into this cavity under here. Because what he was doing, or started to do, was just sort of tape over this whole area rather than down covering just, and that flex tape is like the cheapest. It's way cheaper than foil tape. It's like the cheapest possible solution you could come up with. Okay, those are the experts that Home Depot sent to do the installation. So you can see the gap from here, even from back here. I'll zoom in a bit, but you can see that gap right there on that oven. All the way from back here, and you can even see that bracket. See the bracket back there? You can see that little edge of paint. I'll zoom in on that too, but this is how it looks from out here. And by the way, this foil tape and this whole ducting here, that's our work. That's the house. Home Depot doesn't do clean work like that. Theirs wouldn't, it would not have been that clean. That was already there. That's not their work. That's our work. But anyway, as I was saying, it is up to the homeowner to have this duct lined up with the exhaust port on the oven. Okay, fine. But he didn't even tell me that this was blowing up into the cabinet. That's the least you should do. Tell the customer, hey, you know what, your duct isn't lined up. Maybe even say, get that taken care of. We'll come back and install this thing. Or, okay, we already installed it, but look, you have this issue here. No, none of that. You actually have safety hazards here. If you crack this thing, and now you go down here and you're getting pans out from underneath the stove, and then you lift your head up, look what's right over your head. Yeah. Yep. That cord. This is a microwave convection and air fryer. This thing gets really hot. Hot enough to melt insulation on a power cord that's sandwiched up there. Safety hazards left behind by the three stooges who work for Home Depot. So they left, and I opened up this bag that has some paperwork in it about it has the installation instructions, which they certainly don't have any interest in. It has the template for the oven, and let's pull out these two metal. All right, so this is a damper. This is a little flap, you know, that keeps rain or wind or whatever from going back into the oven. And I got this plate that shows up. And it says there's 3 ways that this oven can exhaust. Through the front and back into the kitchen, through the top up to the roof, or out the back. But in any case, in any one of those 3 cases, it says, warning, do not discard this plate. After changing vent for orientation, you must install plate or plates to locations shown to prevent risk of fire. Really? So this one, this damper, you can see it's just got 2 little pins, one on each end. It's just a little flap. It goes right on the exhaust port on the top of the oven, or the back, or the. Maybe I'll get a shot of my old oven. I can show you how that's installed. But this one, which says, do not discard this plate. This plate must be installed. You must install. Why then am I holding this plate in my hand? When I called the Stooges back and asked them about these plates, in typical Three Stooges fashion, they said, oh, you don't need that. You don't need those. Here's an old oven. Here is an old oven. And see, here's the damper we're talking about. See? Because you got the vent there. And I know the camera's a little dark, but it's a little fan blade in there. And that's a damper that, you know, keeps anything bad from going back down into your oven. That's what the guy says. Oh, you don't need that. The oven itself is nice. I like the oven, but the installation, and can you believe it? I gave these guys a tip. There was 3 of them here. 3 guys. My only question now is, which one's Mo? So, yeah, I filed a claim with Home Depot on this installation, and we're working on that right now. But I just thought I would show you what you get. You know, Home Depot hires cheap labor. Well, that's what you get. Cheap labor. Hey, here we are the next day, guys. So Home Depot just came out. They're exchanging the oven. They just took the old one. Just basically took the top screws out and lifted it out of there. But look at this bracket now. They left the bracket behind, but this is how the guy left the bracket. The installer. You can wiggle it up and down sideways. It's there's nothing here. There's a screw here that's sticking out about that far. Look at that. That's how he put the bracket in. This one doesn't even have a screw. Okay, we'll add that to this video. Okay, and if we look at this bracket, we have what's called a lag bolt in here. This lag bolts, they have a very coarse thread and they have a very big diameter, and it's always a good idea to drill a pilot hole before you put in one of those, because you can actually crack the 2x4 putting those in, but he didn't do that. He just took that power driver and just rammed that bolt in there. You put a power driver in this idiot's hands and he knows just enough to be dangerous. And so they just left, and I want to see what's underneath these. You see that? Look at the way he makes these. They're all choppy, and look at the size of that hole. I mean, you know, originally, see this one. Look what he did here. Look at that. See, originally, the holes were just big enough for the bolts. That's what we had here. Now we've got all these. Oh my God, look at that. I can stick my finger through there. Come on, dude. And yeah, I showed you those. And now this bracket, this is unbelievable. This is how he leaves this bracket. I don't know if you can see that. As I push on this end, that end pops out because nothing's screwed down. Look. I'm pushing on the opposite end over here. This is how he puts this bracket in. Unbelievable. And I didn't show you this before either. Look at that. Look at the bottom side of the cabinet. Look at this guy. It's from that other hole that he insisted on making for no reason whatsoever. Okay, now to illustrate my point about the power cord, he had the power cord, see, stuck here. I don't know if you can see, but that's where you know, that's a block, like a spacer, so your oven can be bolted tight, right? And so he's got the power cord in there. And this is what I'm talking about. Behind that, you basically have a cavity. So if your power cord's in here, it could just as easily go out here as it could out this giant, humongous hole that he made. Why did you have to do that? The power cord is actually free to move around in here. This has enough room, I would believe. Yeah. Now looking at these dampers, see, that's a standard 3.5 by 10 inch. And I look at the damper, they left these behind too. It's an exact fit. That plate that says do not discard is an exact fit. So I believe when we saw that gap, what he did, see, this thing moves. See? He just didn't have this thing centered. Look at that. See? So he just didn't mount that, the stove and the vent to mate, to match. Ay, ay, ay. There's nothing wrong with the ducting after all. See, this is what I'm talking about when I said we had very clean holes. Here's the holes we originally had. This one, you know, we had one here. See how clean they are? Look at his holes. And look at the size of these things. I mean, see, the holes that we had in here, they're just big enough for the bolt. His holes, I mean, Come on, you don't have to do that sort of thing. God. I guess I should say, if you use the template, you don't have to do that sort of thing. And if you get this centered, you don't have to tape up half of the cabinet with that flex tape. So it's easy to see just at a glance. I mean, you know, you can see our original holes compared to his, right? And you can see how this cabinet used to be pretty orderly underneath. I mean, this hole wasn't here. It was just a straight cut on each side of the vent and a little hole for the power cord. We didn't have this whole chopped away mess that we got here now. Now Home Depot wants to come out and do this installation again. Honestly, I don't know that I want Home Depot even touching my house at this point. I don't know that, you know, you do all this and then you want to send somebody else out to do this again? So we're putting in the oven again. I'm using professionals this time. And I discovered why we had this plate left over and why the vent was leaking, because the guy never put this in. This goes on top of the oven, right there. And that fits inside the vent, like that. And the damper attaches to that through the holes in the damper. Probably on this side. There's little holes over here. Anyway, you get the idea. So we just left all that off. Yeah, that's what we just now discovered at this point in time. There we go, and this is what the Three Stooges said. Oh, you don't need that. Well, you know, they also said you don't need lifeboats on the Titanic, right? So we got the new one in, and there's no gap up here like they did. We're running the vent right now, and there's nothing. I don't feel any... Here. Watch this. Nothing. Barely nothing. I mean, I don't even feel it when I put my hand in there. Nothing. So there you go. That's the difference between Temco logistics and a professional. I actually can't even feel it. I can't even feel it on my finger. And that's the highest setting. See, if we go down, I'll turn the setting down a little bit. So there we go. And the door? There we go. The door stays right where we put it. We want to crack the oven a little bit because these air fryers get hot. Now we can do it without the door swinging open. That's the way you do it professionally, not the Temco logistics way. And you see, we did this with just one hole here. These are we filled the holes with wood filler. That's what this is. But we made one hole. I wish I could have showed you the hole, just like before. It's a tiny little hole, maybe a 3/8 hole, just big enough for the bolt. And one here, and that's all we did. We didn't make a whole Swiss cheese affair out of this thing. And we got this mounted perfectly. It's level, there's no gap. The cord comes through the original hole, right? The vent is tight. We got the damper in there. It says you don't need this. There we go. There we go. Boy, am I glad. And we got this thing centered Am I glad I told Home Depot you're not installing this thing again. And we don't see the bracket back there. There is a little bit of, that's just touch-up paint I'm going to have to do. But the bracket is well hidden behind the oven. So, wow, what a difference. What a difference. Now, can you imagine, just imagine, how many of these ovens, or any ovens like these, microwave ovens, that Temco Logistics installs? These guys were on their way probably to install a bunch more of these over and over again. That's what they do. Now, if this was done in an apartment for a tenant, the tenant doesn't know, the tenant doesn't care. In this case, it happened to be the homeowner who's on the ball, but they're doing these over and over again. That's how they're installing these. Can you imagine how many of these are out there, the way they do it? Temco Logistics putting safety hazards in place, putting the thing hanging at an angle and brackets showing its screws cross-threaded and Swiss cheese holes in your cabinets. I mean, that's Temco Logistics. That's the kind of work they do. That's the kind of work they do. It's obscene. They really should just change their name to the Three Stooges microwave installers. And just to illustrate my point, so now, because these air fryer ovens get really hot, these microwave air fryers in the air fryer mode, if I want to just crack this door to let it cool off, that's all I gotta do. See? Wow, how about that, Temco? Jeez. Obscene what you guys are doing out there, customers. So just like to make one last point. Yesterday, we dropped this oven off yesterday. Home Depot dropped it off, Temco Logistics. And the guy says to me, "Are we going to install it?" And I said, no. And he said, "Why not?" And I said, "Well, the other guy didn't use the template. It was a disaster." And what does he say to me? "Oh, I don't use the template. I know where the holes go." Yeah. Okay, that seems to be their mode of operation. You know? It's really, oh my God, I'm lost for words. And what about the level? Let's take a look. Oh. So, you see, you don't get that kind of work from Temco Logistics. They put it in slanted towards the front. Admittedly, we might have a hair, we're like a millimeter maybe off, but it's good. See? Stays where you put it. That's the main thing. Temco doesn't do it that way. Temco Logistics has it slanted downward towards the front so the door swings open, and then when they come back and you show it to them, they say, "Huh, there's nothing wrong with it. It's level." That's what they said to me. And up top, you can see we put wood filler in the holes. We put wood filler in the holes. And in that big hole, there's the original hole, and there's the power cord. We got that going around the back and plugged in. So all's well. That's not the kind of work you get from Temco Logistics. No. Look at that big plug, that 3-4-inch hole saw plug that we plugged up. So, yeah. That ought to do it. And so here we did not use any oriented here. So on this duct, comes down, sitting on top of the exhaust of the microwave. You see, we don't have any tape, no flex tape, no foil tape, nothing. You can see here it's actually sitting on top of the vent. Basically what we did, we just lifted this, got the oven in place and let it drop, went right over the hole, nothing to it. That's the difference when you do it the right way, not the Temco way, the correct way. So had he had his way, this would have been all foil tape all over this whole thing. That cord would have went through that big humongous borehole that he made. This would have had all that foil stuff all over it. Oh my God. Yeah, that's, just feel sorry for all the people that he does these installations for.